What's up, everyone, and welcome into another exciting episode of That Dynasty Show. Today, Tyler and I have got some Dynasty buy low candidates for you. We each got 4 of them that we want to go over ahead of week 2 of the NFL football season. NFL football season, National Football League football season. That's a hell of a way to put it. Anyway, I can't talk today. Tyler, how we doing, buddy?
I'm wonderful. I can't wait to help all these people win their leagues this year and for the rest of their lives.
Yeah, it's always a lot of fun to talk about dynasty buy lows because these are guys that can be had for under market value, if not well under market value, that should offer a pretty decent return down the line. So Tyler, I'll let you give your first one here since I feel like I always start. So I'll let you start today.
No, it's usually pretty fair. I usually go back and forth, but I'll take spot number 1 here. But my number 1 guy today is going to be DeVonta Smith. He's a guy who, according to Keep Trade Cut, dropped 13 spots this past week, and he was on the field for literally every single snap. Maybe not literally everyone, but like 99% of snaps. And to me, I think it just might be an overreaction by a lot of the community. AJ Brown killed it. Obviously, we know that. There's no reason to be scared to own AJ Brown anymore. He proved us all wrong. But at the same time, defenses are going to adjust to that, and they're going to have to give him the best coverage and give him the majority of the attention. And I think that DeVonta Smith he's still a super talented guy, and he's a really good wide receiver who I just feel like hasn't had the real opportunity to shine yet. I really just feel like it's a matter of time. The guy was drafted right behind Jamar Chase in most rookie drafts. For a while there, it was like a toss-up between the two. It was like pick your favorite. Clearly, there's a favorite now, but the guy still has shown immense levels of talent. And just looking at the eye test, he's a guy that I want on my team for the rest of his career. And if someone's willing to ship him off the roster at a discount, I'm going to take it every day.
Yeah, and I would definitely take DeVonta Smith at a discount because, to your point, he's not going to have 0 points every single week, right? That was an oddity. That was Jalen Hurts and DeVonta Smith teaming up together to make sure that they gave everyone that plays Dynasty football a nice buy low window, right? This offense is going to be one of the most productive offenses in the entire league in 2022. And a lot of that is going to come on the ground, right? Like Jalen Hurts had a phenomenal game, and I think he only passed for about 230 yards with about 150 of them going to AJ Brown. But there are going to be better days for the passing offense. There are going to be days where the ball is spread out a lot more. And like you said, defenses are going to adjust, and they are going to mark up AJ Brown. And the more they mark up AJ Brown, when they start double covering AJ Brown, because it's kind of obvious, people are going to have to double cover AJ Brown if they're going to use him how they did in week 1. Smith is going to be wide open on a lot of plays, and I would expect him to have chunk yardage pretty often in those games. So I really like that call out as buy low for DeVonta Smith for sure.
Yeah, and sometimes I feel like you speak my mind better than I speak my mind. So I guess I'll just try to keep it short and let you talk for me.
Well, I'm glad I can help, buddy. We don't agree on everything, but I feel like when we do agree on even like a small part about a player, we have very similar personalities when it comes to it. But I'll get into my first buy low here. It's going to be so I actually have a quarterback, and then I have 3 wide receivers. Usually I try to mix it up a little bit, but I'm pretty passionate about the wide receivers that I'm going to be going over today as buy lows. But go over the QB first, and it's none other than Trey Lance. So Trey Lance, he was going in startup drafts, I believe about a month ago now. He was going around QB8, QB9 whenever Tyler and I would do our mock drafts. And that seemed to be the general consensus. People are way overreacting after the first game, right? Like that game was underwater. The field had literally half an inch of rain on it. There was just nothing going on for either of these offenses. And there are a lot better days ahead, right? Trey Lance could be this year's Jalen Hurts. We've been saying it all off season. A lot of people have been saying it all off season. Like that's not new news, but the new news is that we saw Trey Lance in his first starting role and he didn't excel. But to people who weren't watching the game, they think it was just a piss poor job on the stat sheet. But anyone that actually turned on the TV at all on Sunday could tell it was a fluke, right? whether it's a Chicago Bear, whether it's a San Francisco 49er, I'm not counting week 1 against anyone. And if you can get any of those guys that you like at a discount because of that weird game, I would definitely do it. So Trey Lance, very, very, very good buy low target right now. I don't think he's going to be extremely discounted, but he's definitely cheaper than he was this time last week. So send out an offer or two, see if you can grab him.
Yeah, and I think anyone who gets overreactionary about that game definitely didn't watch it. It's pretty easy to understand why there was a lack of fantasy production there. That's a game that not many people would even want to stand on the sideline for with an umbrella, let alone go play in. So, I actually really like Brandon Aiyuk, and I just bought him in one of our leagues, not our leagues, one of my leagues, rather. I traded Godwin, actually, for Aiyuk in a first. So I felt pretty good about it, and I still feel pretty good about it. I think Brandon Aiyuk is going to get a lot of attention, and I think that there are definitely brighter days ahead, both weather-wise and fantasy production-wise.
Yeah, well, you know what? I was going to let you talk about your second guy, but it's funny that we're bringing up Brandon Aiyuk because he's going to be one of my other buy low candidates, right? I feel like I sound like a broken record when it comes to Brandon Aiyuk because I bring him up in almost every single one of our videos, but it's just there is a screaming buy low on Brandon Aiyuk right now, right? Like he wasn't respected enough in startup drafts this year. He wasn't respected enough in the trade markets this year. Like you could get him for an early 2nd-round pick in a shitty class, right? And I would do that 10 out of 10 times. But right now, Brandon Aiyuk his price tag is still not going up. I don't know if it's necessarily gotten any cheaper in the last week because of week 1, but he definitely didn't help himself in week 1, right? So I think this is the last moment in time where you can get Brandon Aiyuk for less than a 1st-round pick. I think he's going to go out in week 2, much like Trey Lance. I think these two are going to go out and they're going to absolutely ball out. They're playing against Seattle at home. It's a get-right game for this team. Seattle got really lucky against Denver. I don't think that's a secret. I think a lot of us can agree. Seattle's not going to be a good team this year. They just got really lucky against Denver due to poor coaching on one side and also just a lot of emotion in that game. But I think Trey Lance is bouncing back, and I think Brandon Aiyuk is going to be the biggest beneficiary of this. George Kittle is on track not to play. Elijah Mitchell is obviously not going to play in this one. And it's literally just Aiyuk and Debo. And with Elijah Mitchell out, Debo is going to be taking more snaps out of the backfield. I wouldn't be surprised to see Debo have, somewhere between 7 and 10 total attempts in this one. And that just means that Aiyuk is going to be out wide and he's going to be the option on those option plays, right? So I really think right now when this video is coming out, this is the final time where you're going to be able to get Brandon Aiyuk for less than a 1st-round pick in Dynasty.
Yeah, and I think you bring up a really good point with Elijah Mitchell being out because that entirely changes this offense, especially for the wide receiver core. I mean, Deebo Samuel is not, like you said, he's not going to be able to just line up outside and be a split out wide receiver. He's going to get those 7-10 touches probably over the next couple games until Elijah Mitchell's back, or I don't know what the timetable is for him, but regardless, I mean, I think that it opens up a lot of work for everybody in this offense, especially Brandon Aiyuk, because he's going to be the lone guy out there on a handful of snaps. It's not to say that Deebo Samuel's never going to line up wide. Of course he is. But, I mean, there's going to be a lot of situations where Brandon Aiyuk is the wide receiver 1 for a play, and he's going to be the hot route, and he's going to get the looks. So, I really like it. And also, I kind of forgot to mention Elijah Mitchell being out helps Trey Lance's rushing upside too before. So I like both of those calls there.
Exactly. So get your San Francisco 49ers while you can because their price tags are about to adjust, and you're not going to have a very fun time trying to trade for them, I think, as soon as after week 2 is over. But Tyler, I'll let you go ahead with your second guy here.
All right, cool. So my second guy here is going to be Mr. Kenneth Walker III, and I'm still sticking to that name even now. But so this one more so has to do with the fact that Rashad Penny did not do what I expected him to do. He did not get the work share that I expected him to. Rashad Penny only got 12 carries in a game without Kenny Walker. And I expect that number is going to drop once Kenny Walker comes back. I think that Kenny Walker is going to have a decent amount of opportunity here, and maybe not as much as the people who drafted him at the 102, 103 expected, because Rashad Penny is still going to be out there. And there's a chance that they're going to be frustrated without getting that production that they drafted him for right now. And a person who's reactionary enough might be looking to try to replace him with anybody serviceable, really. I mean, if you can package, I don't know, a Chase Edmonds and a second or something like that to go get a Kenny Walker, I'm going to do that in a heartbeat, you know. And there's probably teams out there who right now are pretty desperate for running backs that drafted Kenny Walker and could use one and will make that deal, because we saw a handful of, you know, lower ranked running backs really be productive. We saw Cordell Patterson be productive. We saw a handful of guys, right? So yeah, I'm gonna take this shot to go buy Kenny Walker now instead of the top 5 rookie pick that we had to pay for him a couple months ago.
Yeah, and I like that call. I think pointing out the fact that Rashad Penny only had 12 carries in that game is a very important stat to monitor. Seattle was in charge that game, right? Like I don't think there was a single time where Denver had the lead against them, and they should have been running out the clock. I don't know if Pete Carroll was just messing up. I mean, he definitely passed the ball in some circumstances where I did not expect him to be passing the ball. But I mean, he did that in the Super Bowl those years ago, right? So not really a surprise there. But yeah, every single game that Kenny Walker plays, despite whatever his snap share is, his price tag is just going to adjust back to where it needs to be, right? Everyone was taking him as the RB2, typically in, like, you know, the 104 to 106 spot in rookie drafts this offseason. And a lot of people have kind of soured on him already. It's the fact that Seattle's going to suck this year and Rashad Penny is healthy, right? But every game that's played, Kenny Walker, his backfield share is going to go up. Rashad Penny's backfield share is probably going to go down a little bit. We know Penny can't stay healthy. What happens when Penny goes down? Walker's the workhorse, right? There's a lot of questions on whether or not he can be an asset in the passing game. I'm not going to sit here and lie to people and say he definitely will be, because I can't say that. But if I was going to bank on any running back over the last couple of years, right, coming in and turning into what Nick Chubb turned into, it's going to be Kenny Walker. I can't guarantee that that's going to happen, but it's well within the range of possibility. So getting him as a buy low candidate right now, I love this call. Even though I'm not like the biggest Kenny Walker fan, I think now is the perfect time to get him.
Yeah, and I'm not really like a huge Kenny Walker fan either. I mean, I loved watching him play football, right? But in terms of fantasy, not really so much. But yeah, I mean, you made a really good point. Rashad Penny is eventually going to get hurt. And yeah, I mean, even a guy like Nick Chubb, his rookie year, he didn't come on until late. He didn't really blow up until later on in the season. I can't remember who the running back was there with him, but I know that he didn't really blow up until the second half of the season and become the Nick Chubb that we know. So this does seem like a Walmart version of what that could be. I mean, obviously we know that Seattle's offensive line isn't what Cleveland's offensive line was and still is, right? But yeah, could be a watered down version of a Nick Chubb, and I think that for the price you'll have to pay for him right now, I think it's a pretty good deal.
Yeah, it's a good call. His price tag's just going to keep going up and up and up. So before he takes his first NFL snap in week 2, kick the tires, see if you can get him for cheap. So I'm going to go ahead with my third buy low of the day. And Tyler, funny enough, you brought him up. You said you traded him away and you received a pick in Brandon Aiyuk. It's Chris Godwin. I think Chris Godwin is a beautiful, absolutely stunning buy low option right now. It's no secret that we love Chris Godwin on this channel. It's no secret whatsoever. Tyler and I have been taking him well ahead of his average draft position in like every single mock draft that we did over the summer. And whenever the next time we do a super flex mock, probably do one in the next month or so, he's still going to be ahead of the ADP for both of us, I would imagine. He's just too damn good, man. He's too damn good. Every time he steps on the field, he's a top 10 wide receiver. He just came back from an ACL tear and actually looked pretty damn good until he went down with the hamstring injury in that Sunday night football game against the Dallas Cowboys. And the thing with Chris Godwin is, yes, he probably was rushed back too quick. I think that they probably should have left him on the bench at least until week 3 or 4, let him really get those practice reps so that we could avoid those soft tissue issues. But hey, it is what it is. Because of this hamstring and because of the ACL tear, you combine these two things, he's a perfect buy low right now. He's going to be out of the game for the next 2 to 3 weeks. Fantasy owners are going to need to pivot, right? People who are contending this year, if they lost week 1, they can't wait around for Chris Godwin to come back, and they really need to steal some wins between weeks 2 and 4. Trade him something that's like a win now piece for Chris Godwin, because one, I think Godwin is going to come back, and by the end of the season, whatever win now piece you trade away for Godwin, I think Godwin will be outplaying him by the end of the season. But I think it's just a good move. Whether you're a rebuilder or a contender this year, I think Godwin is the way to go. He's gonna come back and have a really strong finish of the 2022 season, and then obviously beyond 2022, after he's had another season under his belt, when he enters 2023 fully healthy, you're gonna be really happy that you bought low when you did. So Chris Godwin, I would go out. I personally would still overpay for Chris Godwin, right? But his value right now is like the lowest it's been in a while. So I'm a big Chris Godwin fan.
Yeah, and at the price that he's at now, I definitely like it. The one thing that concerns me, I don't want to break the bank on him and overpay like crazy, because we still have to remember that Tom Brady, there's a pretty big chance that he probably doesn't come back next year or the season after that. The injury and losing the couple weeks of production that we thought we were going to get out of him really does suck. But yeah, I mean, it's a risk reward that you're going to have to take, and I think that the reward is a lot higher than the risk you're going to have to give up.
Well, let me ask you this, right? So I'm just pulling this off of Keep Trade Cut. This is fair value as of right now, and it says Godwin's value has gone down over the last couple of days, whatever. Would you take Chris Godwin or Cortland Sutton?
Still Chris Godwin.
Okay, so there you go right there. If you have Cortland Sutton, flip him for Chris Godwin, because apparently that's fair value, which, I mean, you and I are both lower on Cortland Sutton than a lot of people are, I think, so I digress there. But Cortland Sutton, he's not as good of a receiver as Chris Godwin. He doesn't have the track record that Chris Godwin does. That's your perfect example, right? Trade away Sutton, the win now piece, the piece that someone needs for these next few weeks, and get Chris Godwin. Like, obviously, if you're that person that needs to seal some wins, okay, well, bite the bullet, hold on to Sutton, whatever. But if you're in a position where, you know you're going to be able to string together those wins at the end of the season, or you don't really care about these first couple of weeks, go out and get Godwin, man. He's too damn good. He's too damn good. He has had multiple fantasy finishes in the top 10 wide receivers, multiple fantasy finishes in the top 15 wide receivers in points per game basis on the years that he does get hurt. He's just too damn good. And you do need to err on the side of caution, right? Because this is likely Tom Brady's last season. He's announced it unofficially, right? That like he just wanted to play until he was 45. He's 45 now. There's a lot of speculation that this could be, the last dance. We don't know what's going to happen with the Tampa Bay quarterback situation, but they'll figure it out. And either way, Chris Godwin is going to be the safety valve for whoever comes in next year. So I don't know. I still love him regardless.
No, and I'm with you, right? Like there's no sensible way that I could take Cortland Sutton over Chris Godwin, because the best predictor of future behavior is past behavior, right? So it's like how can I look at what Chris Godwin has done and rightfully say that I should want to have Cortland Sutton on my roster? It doesn't make any sense to me. So in that specific example, especially, I'm smash accepting that. But yeah, your turn, buddy.
Oh no, that was my turn. Now it's your turn.
Oh, my bad. I was so into it. I thought that was my turn.
Poor guy's forgetting who he picked.
So my next guy is Nick Chubb, actually. So we brought him up before. He's a guy he's dropped a handful of spots in Keep Trade Cut rankings, and this has a lot to do with the performance that Kareem Hunt had. And for me, when you look at it, it was a dead even snap share between the two. It just so happened that this week Kareem Hunt got the touches that ended up in the end zone. We know that Nick Chubb can find the end zone. We know that he's going to find it this year. And it wouldn't surprise me if it's a back and forth between who's going to boom and bust between those two each week, because we saw Nick Chubb have a solid football game, right? He just didn't have a great fantasy game. He got all the touches between the tackles and he ran hard, but not many of those touches were fantasy productive. They're going to come for him this year. They are going to find their way into his game log, and he's going to be the Nick Chubb that we know and love. It might be a little bit less than we've had in years past because we have a healthy and active Kareem Hunt. But yeah, I'm buying Nick Chubb for anybody who's selling him at less than they were last week. Definitely.
Yeah, I think Nick Chubb is an interesting buy low option for contenders out there because I mean, he's not typically the guy that I go for, right? Like I've said it a bunch on this channel. I'm more into those running backs that are going to go out there, catch passes, and be a PPR monster. But Nick Chubb is honestly kind of the exception. You have to bank on him having 80 plus yards and a touchdown, but there aren't many games where he doesn't have 80 plus yards, and he scores a touchdown in more games that he doesn't, right? So I think out of like the top 12 running backs for 2022, Nick Chubb is probably in the back half of that for sure. Probably a lot closer to 12 than he is to 6, in my opinion. But with that being said, I mean, he's about as solid as they come. Worst case scenario, you're getting a weekly RB2 with RB1 upside. But when he goes off, I mean, he's going to go off. He had like 130 yards or something like that against Carolina. And if he found the end zone, we would be having a completely different conversation, right? So I really like the call on Nick Chubb there.
Yeah, and it's odd to call him a buy low, right? But I feel like he's a guy that not a lot of people are going after and chasing, and not too many people are dead set on keeping him in their lineup. So if you can find a good deal on him, I'm gonna go take it.
Yeah, completely agree with that one. And it's so funny because all off season I was like, I'm fading Nick Chubb. All off season I was like, I'm fading Kenny Walker. But you're right. You know, Kenny Walker, his value's tanked, right? Because of the what is it? The hernia surgery. And then Nick Chubb, because of guys like me, he's just never been fairly valued. So it is what it is there. But I'll move on to my last guy of the day. Another receiver. Sorry for pointing out 3 receivers. I don't know if you wanted more running back content, but thankfully Tyler brought a lot for you guys. DK Metcalf. Maybe this one's a cop-out because I'm sure you've heard this before. You've heard it this offseason. You just got to get through 2022, and then DK Metcalf is going to come back and reward you. But after week 1, people with DK Metcalf could be even more sour on him, right? This was a close game. This was a game that Seattle really needed to win, and they did. But DK only had 10.5 fantasy points. The tight ends were going crazy. 2 different tight ends scored touchdowns. I think 3 different tight ends had a reception on both sides of the ball, which was pretty wild. But, man, Geno Smith is going to spread this ball around. They have him in there to be a game manager. Seattle is going to win games with their run game and with their defense this year. That's the only way that they're going to do it. And Geno Smith just needs to play incredibly safe football. That's really bad for DK Metcalf and Tyler Lockett, and their 2022 performances are going to be very frustrating. However, if you're in a rebuild, there might not be a more perfect receiver to go after than DK Metcalf. Geno Smith is not the long-term plan in Seattle. I think anyone with a brain can tell you that. This offense will click by the end of the year. I think they will figure it out. I'm not saying DK Metcalf is going to revive and be a top 15 wide receiver each week, but he's going to have plenty of games where he is definitely very relevant. But DK Metcalf is one of the more talented receivers in the NFL. He's a freak athlete. They just extended him, right? He's got the money to go with it. So I would fully expect Seattle to, if they need to revamp their offense after the 2022 season, and I think they will. I think Geno Smith just played his best game of his life, and we're not really going to see that version of Geno Smith the rest of the year. They're going to figure something out. They're going to get a half-decent quarterback into Seattle, or they're going to go out and they'll draft one, and they will have a half-decent quarterback eventually there. So I think that this is just the perfect buy low opportunity for DK. And honestly, you know, you might even be able to wait another 2 or 3 weeks because I don't see many scenarios where DK Metcalf is going out there and getting back in his 20 to 25 point games. I think this 10 to 12 range is probably going to be kind of standard for him most weeks. So his value might actually go down a little bit more, but I had to bring him up because after week 1, getting 10.5 points, I mean, that's a big disappointment by DK's standards. So his value is down and those owners might be looking to jump ship.
Yeah, and I think if you can go get him now. You know, I wouldn't want to catch the falling knife, you know, or try and buy him at the very bottom, right? I mean, there's going to be a game at some point this year where his athletic, freakish nature comes out, and he's going to score, you know, 2 touchdowns in a game or something like that, and people are going to remember who he is. But I didn't forget. He is still the craziest athlete at the wide receiver position, I think probably in the league. I can't think of anybody else off the top of my head that might be more athletic and scary than him. If I were to see any receiver of the NFL in a back alley late at night, DK Metcalf would be at the very bottom of the list. So he still is that guy. He still is the absolute monster that we know him as. And he's so young. It's literally a matter of time. This guy's going to be one of the best and most talented receivers in the league for a while. If I had an outlook to 2025, 2026, I would say that anybody who buys DK Metcalf right now at a discount is going to be ecstatic about it, and they're going to be bragging about it to the league mates for a long time.
Yeah, I think so. I think so. He's going to pay big dividends for people who are patient and for people who can look to the future. We knew coming into this season that 2022 was going to be a down year for DK. It's not his fault, though. Bet on the talent. Don't bet on the situation. It's going to be fine. It'll work itself out, right? So with that being said, that is my final guy. And Tyler, I know you got one more.
Yeah, I got one more for you guys, and we actually talked about him in our start sits yesterday too. So Tony Pollard is going to be the guy for me here. I feel like he's probably the one who's going to be least affected by Dak's injury because he's one of those check down routes. I know we mentioned that, but also I feel like if I looked out to 2024, 2025, 2026, it's a lot more likely to me that Tony Pollard's on this roster than Ezekiel Elliott. I think that he's definitely comfortable as maybe not a long-term every down back for Dallas, but I think he's going to be there for a while. And I think that the team is going to come to rely on him. He's very appreciated there in all the things that he does. And he's going to see a lot of opportunity over the next couple of years. So I'm going to take Tony Pollard now before he becomes the lead back in Dallas. And especially now that everyone's going to be so low on this Dallas offense without Dak for the next couple of weeks. I mean, anybody who had Tony Pollard as what they thought was going to be a flex play or once in a while or something like that, they might have lost a little bit of faith. So I'm going to go out and get him now before he proves them wrong, because I think it's going to happen sooner rather than later.
Yeah, I like that call because as a guy who has Tony Pollard in a couple of weeks, I can tell you I soured on him after week 1, right? 6 carries for 8 yards. 2 catches for 14 yards, abysmal offensive line play in front of him. Dak Prescott goes down with injury. Only guy on the entire team that does anything is Dalton Schultz, right? So, I mean, you could argue that anyone in this Dallas offense is a buy low right now, right? Especially CeeDee Lamb, Dalton Schultz. But while we're talking about Tony Pollard, I completely agree because this offensive line, even when Dak is back later this year, this offensive line is blown to pieces right now, right? Like those guys were dropping like fruit flies in the offseason, and it's not looking good. And it didn't look good, especially against Tampa Bay on that Sunday night football game. Tony Pollard is going to be a big beneficiary. Ezekiel Elliott is being faded out of the receiving game. He's going to be relied on a lot in the ground game, but I don't see Dallas being firmly in a lot of games, at least for the next 4 to 6 weeks while Dak is nursing that injury. And I think that they're going to have to get creative. They're going to have to do these short dink and dunk pass plays. And one of the biggest beneficiaries is going to be Tony Pollard. So, yeah, I would fully expect him to have a bounce back week 2. I don't think he's going to shatter the league by any stretch of the imagination. But to your point, he's a very solid flex play, a good filler for that RB2 spot. And, if Dallas does move on from Ezekiel Elliott after the 2022 season, which is a big possibility, Tony Pollard's going to be the guy, at least for a season. And really, I mean, if you're buying low now, if you have a somewhat of a workhorse in the 2023 season, I mean, you're going to be thanking that you bought him low.
Yeah, and I think that's really the outlook for him, right? Is like not even this year, but like next year and the year after that. I think that he's going to get such an increase in opportunity. He's had an increase in opportunity every year in Dallas. I really love everything about the guy and watching him play. And I think that he's going to be really effective in the touches that he does get. Obviously, he wasn't this past week, but you're right. You made a couple of good points there that I just hate to hear about Dallas's offensive line being completely decimated. Hate to tell you, it's been that way for a couple of years. They have not been anywhere near what they were when Zeke Elliott came in the league. It sucks to say, but almost every piece of this Dallas offense is buy low. There's some owners that are too smart to go out there and sell CeeDee Lamb at a discount, unfortunately. But yeah, I mean, if you can go get any piece of them besides Zeke, I'd go after it, definitely.
Well, let me ask you this. So this is related but unrelated. I mean, it involves DK Metcalf and CeeDee Lamb. I saw a trade on Twitter the other day, and I was like, damn, that's kind of a wild trade, but it makes sense. Somebody traded away DK Metcalf and a projected like early 23 second for CeeDee Lamb. And I think for a lot of people, I mean, this time, even 7 or 8 months ago, right? CeeDee Lamb and DK Metcalf were in a very similar conversation in terms of dynasty value. So I got to ask you that. What side do you prefer? A top 15 pick in DK Metcalf or CeeDee Lamb? Because in my mind, especially now knowing what we know with Dak's injury, it's kind of close.
I feel it's definitely split straight down the middle. I feel like it's a really lateral move. It would kind of be a pick your poison. Like if somebody asked me for my advice on that, I would literally say pick your poison. Which receiver do you like better, right? Because it's going to be tough to go wrong there, and no one's going to really fault you. But if I was forced to pick a side, I think I'd still stick with CeeDee, and I'm probably going to be in the minority there. I think because we've seen DK produce at wide receiver 1 levels before, we haven't seen CeeDee Lamb do it. But I think that overall, CeeDee Lamb is in a much better spot and is comparable in terms of skill level as a receiver. So based on the situation that he's in going forward in the future, looking more far out in the future beyond these next couple weeks and beyond this season even, I think I'm going to stick with CeeDee. But again, with not very much conviction, I could very easily be wrong about that.
Yeah, it's a really close one for me. I think I kind of lean the DK Metcalf side. But if you asked me that exact same trade 4 days ago before Dak got hurt, I would have taken the CeeDee Lamb side. And that's just the contending, spirit in me for 2022, because I think CeeDee Lamb is still a much safer bet each week, even though they're both in abysmal offenses. Seattle's going to spread it around a lot. Dallas is not going to have the luxury of doing that. Like CeeDee Lamb had 11 targets on Sunday night. The fact that he only had 2 catches was kind of absurd and definitely an outlier. I would expect him, even with Cooper Rush back there, he's going to get peppered with targets. And I promise you, he's going to catch a lot more than 2 out of 11 moving forward. So it's very close. It's very close. But I had to bring that up because it was just a very interesting trade offer that I saw out there. And usually when you see offers, like trade offers highlighted on Twitter, it's like some bullshit offer like, oh, I just got Javonte Williams for a 2nd-round pick. How did I do? Like, yeah, no shit, buddy. You did good. You ripped off your buddy, whatever. But no, this was actually like a head scratching. Like, damn, that's a close one. So I just had to bring it up.
Yeah, I think if I wasn't a Dallas fan, I might even lean the other way. But I mean, I've been watching everything CeeDee Lamb has done for his entire NFL career, and I obsessed over him when he was in college. Not when he was in college, but after Dallas drafted him. Of course, watching his highlights and stuff, I became ultra obsessed with him and fell in love with the guy. But yeah, I mean, in a different lifetime, I might have gone the other way. But again, it's so split down the middle. Like if the wind's blowing north tomorrow, I might tell you to go DK.
Yeah. But anyway, that's going to do it for us here on That Dynasty Show. Appreciate you guys sticking around, listening to some Dynasty buy lows, and hopefully at least one of these guys got you thinking, and you'll go out there and try to acquire one in your league, whether you're contending or whether you're rebuilding or kind of in a weird in-between spot. I think there's at least 1 or 2 guys on this list for every team. So do with that information what you will. If you like this video, make sure you hit that like button. If you like hearing me and Tyler and seeing me and Tyler, hit that subscribe button. We do really, really, really appreciate our subscribers. And, seriously, it is absolutely awesome getting to log into YouTube every morning and seeing, oh, dude, we got an extra subscriber. Like, how cool. Like Tyler and I, we're still in the stage where like we'll get, I don't know, 3, maybe 4 subscribers a week, and we'll text at the end of the week like, hell yeah, dude, like we're getting more. We're doing it. So, I know we're a small channel. We're still building it up, but seriously, we do appreciate every single one of you watching these videos. And yeah, join that Discord if you haven't. If you got anything to say, hit those comments. Our video from a few days ago is posted, our start and sits. If you got any last minute start sit questions, feel free to put that on this video as well. I don't care if it's not a start sit video. We're always happy to jump in the comments and answer those questions for you guys.
Yeah, and I'll just echo what you said, man. I mean, I've been having a ton of fun with this, and definitely appreciate all the support we've been getting. And yeah, we literally do text about how many views we're getting on videos and how many likes, subscribers, whatever, who commented what. We know some of you guys by name. We can talk about some of you guys by name when we're texting and whatnot. So and so put a trade. Yeah, the whole thing's been awesome, and really glad to see where it's going and where it heads because we are right in the thick of it.
Hell yeah, man. Well, for myself, for Tyler, and for that Dynasty show, thanks for tuning in, and we will see you next time.